Patrick Fenora here, co-founder at Vetted Biz and Visa Franchise. Excited to have on Todd Houghton, who's the president of Homewatch CareGivers. Todd, thanks for joining today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Patrick. I appreciate it.
So I won't out you on your age, but I understand you've been in the franchising space since you were in your teenage years and working with your parents' multi-unit cookie empire. Can you tell us a little bit how you went from basically running a bunch of cookie franchises to the home healthcare space?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I started, as you said, like in my teens with my family and was afforded the opportunity to run a cookie empire. And back when they were big in that era. And then when I graduated college, I transferred over to the franchisor side and have spent pretty much all of my career on the franchisor side. Probably 15 years ago, got into the human care side of things. I started out with franchising in the early childhood care space and then transitioned about 12 years ago to the senior care space and have been with a couple of the different home care franchise organizations. And then about 10 months ago came on as the leader of Homewatch.
And what attracted you at Homewatch CareGivers to join? What was it about their operations, culture, or also what you could bring and get them to the next level?
Yeah, I think first I'd say like for me it's all about the passion in the space. So what our franchisees do every day in delivering the best care possible. The second piece for me is all about allowing those franchisees to fulfill their dreams of being in business ownership. So wherever they're at, wherever they come from in the world, it's very exciting for me to be able to see them have those milestones along the way. And then when it came to Homewatch, just the opportunity that was presented through our parent company and our private equity company to focus on this brand, really forge forward with growth for the brand across the country and across the globe, essentially. And then also having the ability to take what I want to do with the brand as far as being innovative and bringing technology into the space and things like that. Having essentially the wide open space to do that was very exciting for me. So that's what attracted me.
What are some of the benefits for being part of like a larger kind of network where you have authority brands and you have these other franchise brands and the ecosystem with Homewatch that are in different industries, but at the end of the day, franchising is like a very unique business model. I'm sure there's some shared learnings.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many synergies that work within us having our 17 brands, right? So we benefit from shared services, which is great for our franchisees because it allows us at the support center to have lower overhead, if you will, because we can share services across the 17 brands, such as marketing, legal, accounting, several others as well. So that's actually one of the big benefits on the operations side.
Imagine you could just afford much better talent than if it was just Homewatch separately having a COO or head of legal. Like you couldn't afford the top talent.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. And then the other piece of it too is there are synergies between the brands. So it allows, like in our brand with Homewatch, we also have the Cleaning Authority is one of our brands. And that allows us to do synergies with them where a client might need a weekly schedule to have somebody come in and do that deeper clean work, which we don't do. So we can have that synergy. Or we have a client that's trying to live at home because that's their wish. We have, electric, we have plumbing, we have AC. So if anything's going wrong at the home, it's much easier for us to work across brands to get those repairs done. So there's all those synergies that really help each of one of our brands uniquely. And then just the power behind our private equity company is phenomenal as well with everything that they have at the brand, different brands, even outside of authority brands that they have that help us with some of our technology solutions, other things that we want to do, which is great. So it puts us in a unique position.
Yeah, I imagine it seems like really value-added smart money where they're funding your business and growth, but they're coming in with a lot of strategy and probably a lot of relationships to help you get there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes it just great for me as a leader where I can be like, okay, who can I call from within our organization to help with this? And sure enough, there's somebody there to help.
Who is caregiving for and who's it not for? Like people looking to get an entrepreneurship in a franchise, whether it is with Homewatch or not, like who should consider caregiving as a business opportunity and who should not?
Yeah. So, one thing to always be mindful, there's so many choices out there in the world of what you could do for franchising. Like I want to be a franchisee. What do I want to do? Then you have to look at the different categories of it. In the home care space, one, absolutely you have to be passionate about what you do day in and day out. As I said, you're helping somebody through, I'd say 2/3 of our business is really on the senior side of it. And then the other third is other people like rehabbing from hospital stays and things like that. But you have to be passionate about that. They're in their time of need, and we need to make sure that we fulfill that as a franchisee, or our franchisee fulfill that. They also have to realize that it's a 24/7 business. You're not, in an 8 to 5 job anymore. You are actually having to be on and be willing to be on that 24/7. Granted, you fill in your team to take care of some of the things, but you're still the owner. So,
but if there's some major incident, it's got to kick up to you. And I would imagine maybe after you have 100 caregivers, you have a COO or some rule that
absolutely. Many of our franchisees have that structure, right? They'll have an executive director or COO or whatever, and a head of nursing, different levels that take care of things for them. But at the end of the day, the franchisee is still responsible, and it's, your doors didn't close at 5 o'clock on Friday, allowing you to take the weekend off. And, I'm always all about that when we're doing meet the team days and things like that, and just making sure they're aware. It's hard business. It's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, there's a lot of selling going on in franchise that's like, this is easy. Like, you don't have to work that hard, but I'm still looking for those opportunities. Like, I'll invest my money in something I don't have to work at all and just like collect like just a, amazing return on investment. And I haven't found it yet.
Yeah. When you find it, let me know. And then maybe I'll switch from the franchisor side back to the franchisee side. But yeah, it's one of those things like, I really believe when I talk with prospective franchisees, I'm like, you really have to be passionate about this day in and day out. It's not like you can hire somebody to run the kitchen for you or hire somebody to run the cash register for you, right? You're going to have to oversee all that and make sure it's happening every day.
And what's the scale up like? Like, you start the business, I imagine you're splitting your time trying to get clients, customers, mostly seniors, as well as recruiting the caregivers. Like, after a year, 2 years, 3 years, like, what's that organizational chart look like?
Yeah. So we have a very strategic roadmap for our new franchise owners when they actually come on. And like when they're getting ready to open the doors, the requirement is that there has to be a minimum of 2 people in their operation. One is the operations person, one is their community marketing or salesperson. So the operations person is handling all those day-to-day office things of getting caregivers recruited, doing the scheduling, doing the billing, payroll, those types of things. And then the community person is the one that's out there being the face, building those networking relationships with referral sources, getting that business to come in the door. We have people that are amazing that within 3 months, like, I have to add a person in the office or add a second person in the office third person within 6 months. They're great. Typically, I'd say somewhere around that 9-month range is when that third person comes in to help. And it does, I should clarify, it does vary by state, because sometimes some states require a nurse on board.
Just to get the license takes a while, or you have to have some other person on the staff.
Yeah, because of licensing. So you do have those unique things by state. But I would say most of our offices have their foundation by about 12 to 13 months. And that would be typically 4 or 5 people. And then as they grow, within 24, 36 months, they're starting to add people below that structure.
And how many caregivers, like, after 2 years of operating a Homewatch, how many caregivers are you talking about?
So a typical unit after about 2 years is about 60 to 70 caregivers.
60 to 70.
Yeah. So,
I imagine some of your franchisees were pretty happy with all these government incentives with like payroll protection with,
Yes, during pandemic time yes, that helped them stay open. It was a good thing, right? Because there's that whole challenge of how do we incentivize the caregivers to go into homes when the rest of the world is shut down? And so allowing for like the PPC and the tax credits, things like that, allows them to, incentivize the caregivers more to want to go into the homes and do the right thing for our clients. So that was very helpful that we had that for them.
And there's a trend. I don't know how it's going to continue, in 2025 with maybe a new administration, but like, it seems like the benefits of having workers compared to contractors are pretty clear, where the government's really incentivizing, and that payroll percentage like is kind of mute when you consider all these other ancillary benefits that you get in terms of just having the W-2 worker, having them actually as an employee rather than a contractor.
Yeah, but it takes a lot. Like, so from our perspective, from the support center perspective, we have to look for those benefits for our franchisees and provide it out to them and tell them how to go for it. You're going to have so many franchisees that don't know what to do or where to start.
It all looks like a scheme. These I get emails every day about like per employee $13,000 tax credit. Like,
right.
Unless you have like a trusted other business owner or a franchise system and the franchisors on top of this, like I could easily see how you would not do it.
Yeah, because you're spot on. You're like, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true. I mean, I was brought up that way. If it sounds too good to be true, it's got to be too good to be true. And then you get these emails daily or whatever, and somebody like at our support center that my team is looking into them and investigating and letting our owners know. But I know there's so much more opportunity, not just within our organization, but other companies out there that could take advantage of those things to incentivize employees and do better retention.
What are some of the ways that you're working on or you've worked on to lower people leaving and caregivers staying more time?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll toot my horn for a second. We just won an award a couple months ago for the most innovative retention program through a franchise publication. There was probably 1,000 entries from different franchise organizations. So the fact that we took home the prize is pretty exciting. And
big.
I have a workforce. We call it our workforce solutions team. So that's on our support center side that works on that. And there's so many things that we do now to focus on how do we retain. And one of the biggest components of that program was really about what's your culture, right? And so each franchisee has to develop their culture, and they have to understand that their caregivers are the ones that make the money for them. So many times, not just in my organization, but organizations I've been in the past, I hear franchisees, be upset and not handle things appropriately with caregivers. And it's like, those are your bread and butter. You need to focus on them.
You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
Yeah, exactly. So really focusing first on the culture aspect. And then we do talk about a lot of benefit opportunities that are like free or low cost that a franchise owner should focus on and offer out to their caregivers to incentivize them to be part of that. And then one of the other things that we are now, we're actually in pilot through our innovation, is that we have offices that now guarantee 40 hours to their caregivers a week. And it's through a whole different service line that we're working on and getting ready to launch out. But that really helps with that retention. Now that caregiver knows, well, I'm getting my 40 hours. Unfortunately, they may still have to work another job, to really be able to make enough money, but at least they know they're getting the 40 hours from Homewatch CareGivers. They don't have to think, oh, maybe I'm only getting X, and then I got to go over to this other company and work X, go to this company and work X to get to
culturally, a lot of times they're working at like multiple caregiving companies.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm going with it. Yeah, absolutely. And then our franchisees can't get them to work because they're already scheduled somewhere else, right? But so by guaranteeing that 40 hours a week, the economics of it, when you look at it all, works out so much better for our franchisees.
I love it. And I imagine the tech component really comes in terms of like who's where, what scheduling opens up, and like just being on top of it. So it's a win-win for the franchise owner together with the employees.
It's amazing where that's come in the last, I'd say 12, 14 years I've been in the space, where we can actually start to see that now through the technology aspect, so-and-so caregivers right here, and I need them over here. They're close by. I can call them up. So it's great. It's just such an exciting time.
And I'm also sure from like a compliance perspective, it's nice having those checks where they arrived at such and such time at the site, they left at such and such time, and that everything's kind of buttoned up.
Yeah, and we're driving through with some phenomenal new technology that actually it gets away from the geofencing, because they're actually going to clock in and out in the home on a device that's in the home.
Cool.
Yeah. So, because geofencing, you can get pretty close, but they could still be like at the corner clocking in and never show up. So here they actually physically have to be in the house to clock in and then clock out. So it's pretty exciting to have all that going on too.
And for someone that's passionate, they're a strong cultural fit, what are we talking about in terms of investment amount to get started, including all the working capital?
Yeah, I think, our franchise fee is $50,000, and then we have a working capital requirement. It's, they need to have like around 125, 150 to really be able to get off the ground and get going and be able to operate for the first year.
Makes sense. And is there a way for those corporate executive types that maybe they're making $200K and they want to make that much faster or right away? Is there a way for them to buy an existing Homewatch CareGivers location? Do you guys help help with that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a full resale department within our team that helps with our existing franchisees who are looking to exit. You're always going to have some attrition where somebody's like, okay, I've done this for many years. I'm ready to move on to something else. So we have great units that are often up for resale. And so somebody will come in and buy that and already have it essentially ramped up for them. It'll cost a little more money for them, but
yeah, you pay a premium, but depending on your financial situation, it can make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that seems like something that Authority Brands has done well across the portfolio of 17, where they have allocated like a lot of resources to resales and understanding that the average franchisee is staying in it for 7-8 years and people move and this is the type of business that you should be in the same city. And if your wife gets a job, it probably makes sense to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, so many people are surprised because I throw that number out all the time. I'm like, the average lifetime is 7 to 8 years and then they're ready to get out. And they're like, that sounds like a marriage. And I'm like, it is a marriage. It was supposed to be a 10-year marriage, but they wanted to go at 7. So, we help them. But, it's very important. We actually start talking about it the day they sign their franchise agreement. We start talking about what's your exit strategy? And we always say it sounds weird, but we want you to be ready when you're ready to go. And because a lot of them do miss that, right? If we don't talk about it, they miss it. And then the day comes that they want to sell and all of the ducks aren't in the row to be ready to sell. So that's why we always talk about it.
And it's something that should be discussed up front with the spouse as well. Like, hey, I'm putting in these 2 years, it's going to be a ton of work, but it's for that later payday.
Yeah. Absolutely. You got to include the whole family in it if you're doing it. Like if you have to have kids and they have to know like, hey, mom or dad, whoever's running the business might be working 12-hour days or 14-hour days a couple of years, but the benefits come and you get to go on nice vacations and do fun things.
So, what's impressed me the most, like we've studied like pretty much all the industries in franchising at Vetted Biz. We've collected all the data and just the resell, like midpoint investment to resale amount for home care franchises. I know Homewatch is part of this. It's like a really good return on your investment where say you invest $100K. These are being sold for 3-4 times what the owner is making. And it doesn't take much to add together like what the margins are for the industry and, average sales to realize like this could be getting you $1 million if you grow it right. And it could be a nice capital gain after already earning income throughout those years.
Absolutely. If you come in and you work hard for the first, 12 months, 18 months out of it, you're going to start seeing great returns quickly after that.
A lot of franchises aren't like that. So, the retail businesses, like, talking about a cookie franchise where you have background with, a lot of those brands, it's hard to recoup your capital investment. So, it was different, I think, in the heydays with the malls and everything, and they were just gold mines. But a lot of these retail type businesses, you open for $250, like a Subway, you open, I think, $330 and they're selling for $250.
Right.
So it's just like there's a huge disconnect. Why would you ever open up a new Subway when you're going to not make you're most likely not going to get your money back and you'll make just some income throughout the lifetime.
And hopefully you're getting something back, not having to just
exactly shutting the door.
And that's like in any of the food sector, like those build outs are just ridiculous, right? You think about it, like you're looking, $500,000, $1 million and a half to build out a small strip center sandwich shop, and so it's going to take you a while to get that return on that investment. It does not work well.
And then even the big ones like a KFC, a Taco Bell, they're in the millions. Like, their earnings are kind of the same as like a Homewatch or another, franchise in your space.
Yeah, they are. And then and so when you look at those, I always say too, those are the brands where you have to be set up to be a multi-unit owner to make the economics work because of the investment that you're putting into it, right? In our world, where in the home care space, it's a nice, easy investment for most people. And like you said a few minutes ago, you're going to get a great return if you're doing the right thing.
Who's your biggest franchise owner? Like how many caregivers does he have?
Our largest has probably about 500 caregivers.
Okay. So that's a serious operation. Like what does that look like from like CEO, COO, CFO?
They have every level. Their overall revenue is larger than many total franchise organizations out there. So they do very well.
Are you okay, Todd, having franchisees that kind of stop at the 60 caregivers? Or are you pushing people to grow and be at a 150, 200?
Quite honestly, so from our support structure, the way
Yeah.
the way we structure, we have them bucketed, if you will, into different buckets. And so we have a certain bucket where we know that those are the growth oriented franchisees. So they get a certain type of support, and we have
Sure.
different levels. And then we have what we just call it our steady state of franchisees. And those are the ones that you're referring to right there. They're happy, doing what they do for their revenue. They're happy with the return that they get. So we know that we'll try to get them to move the needle somewhat to increase. We also know that, they're happy. So we're not going to be able to do a lot of change in what they're doing.
And that can't be said, I've spoken to other brand executives, franchisees of other groups where it's kind of you're moving up or you're moving out, where it's a little more cutthroat, where you're really got to be growing all the time, or they kind of want you out of the system. So it's nice that you mold to kind of more the culture and lifestyle the franchisee wants at some point.
Right. And I've, again, doing this long enough, like I have this 80-20 rule, right? So 80% are definitely the ones that are accelerating, that want to grow, and that's where we're at. The 20%, part of those are definitely just happy with where they're at, and that's fine. And then there's a small percent within that are the up and out. Like if they're not going to move up, they need to go because they're not doing anything good for our brand, right? So there's a small percentage in there.
Todd, what metrics are you following daily, or are your franchisees following daily? Any KPIs you can think of?
Yeah, so I think we have two sets, right? So our franchisees are going to get more granular in what they follow on a day-to-day basis. From the franchisor's perspective, we're looking at our system-wide sales on a daily basis. We pull that up and see, like, how do we do? We look at our hours on a daily basis. And then we also are looking at not so much daily, maybe monthly, but we're looking at several other metrics that fall in there, like our unit growth, meaning new units that we're opening in a month. We also look at client counts, like how many new clients do we add in a week's time. So we monitor them. Some are daily, some are weekly, some are monthly from the franchisor perspective. Franchisee, they have similar ones, but then they're also a lot more focused on their labor. What's their labor percent running? Because that's their biggest controllable expense within their unit, which affects their gross margins. So they follow that on a daily basis. They're following their lead conversions. So where are their leads coming from? Their lead conversions, their hours, their gross margin, their sales, and then they always follow their net new hires as well. So how many new hires did they do in a week's time? Because they can't grow without new caregivers coming in the door. Those are like the high level ones, and then it gets pretty granular. I think I have one location that has over 300.
Good amount that you guys are tracking.
Well, I have one that has over 300 KPIs. One franchisee, I'm like, how do you do that? Like, I get on the call with him, and I'm like, that's a lot. And he's like, well, this is what I need for business. So hey,
I go through like 5 every day, and then weekly I'll go through 50. But that's a lot.
He's got a lot.
And how about system-wide sales? Any? Can you share what your sales are at or how they're growing?
Yeah, so we are about 15% above last year at this point, and running about 6% above the budget that I put in place. So we're seeing some great numbers. We've done double-digit increases since 2016, year over year. So phenomenal growth. And as I'm working on 2024 already, which is hard to believe, the budgets, but we'll anticipate another double-digit increase in our system-wide sales. And that's the same store. So that's not including...
I was going to ask to clarify. So that's really impressive.
That's just same store. So, which is fantastic.
So even net of inflation, it's still double digits. Where you'll see like some food franchises growing 4%, but net of inflation, it's 0.
Yeah.
Or depending on the year, it's like it's not growing.
Yeah, we're excited about how our franchisees are doing with it, and the growth will continue for us. I mean, we know our niche, we know what we need to do.
And is there much friendly competition between the franchisees to like continue growing? And is there like a leaderboard?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do put out a leaderboard. Yes, we do. So we put out our top 20 on a monthly basis so that they can see it, and that allows those that might not be in that top 20 to also reach out and be like, "How do you do it? How do I get there?" And so that really promotes that competition, competitive nature. And then we also do what we call performance groups. And so we have several performance groups, and there's about 8 franchisees in performance groups. So that really promotes that competitiveness within their performance groups as well, which helps those increases come.
How often are franchisees meeting like in a structured format?
And their performance groups meet quarterly and do that. And then we also have some that just meet like within their states or their region, or like in their city. Like if there's multiple franchisees within a DMA, they'll meet like on a monthly basis, go out for dinner and really share
Straight note.
their wins and their challenges, and that's what I really think helps make it a strong system.
And what states are easiest to open up where it's also like a great market opportunity? Because I know certain states it takes a long time, like getting the license.
Yeah, there's some states that do take significant amount of time. So Maryland is one of those where it can take 12 months to get a license. Most states it's it average like 90 days to get a license.
Okay.
But you have a few states that have no licensure. Like Idaho is not a licensure state, so they can open right away. Arizona has no licensure, so they can open essentially right after they get their business license, but they don't need to get the home care license. New Mexico also no licensure, and Alabama I think is the other one.
Okay. Does it kind of net out where the licensure acts as like a competitive moat where you don't have as many mom and pops entering Maryland, and if you can stomach it, or
getting there now, right? So I mean, when I started in the business, there was only a handful of states that really had licensure requirements and governance around what we do. And obviously, many states have joined the bandwagon now to make sure there is some sort of oversight and licensure. So it helps a little bit, but not yet. I mean, when I got into it, there was probably a dozen companies franchising home care. Today, there's probably 70 different companies trying.
It's kind of confusing it's confusing for me, and like I'm kind of in the weeds, like where I'm looking at all the data. I've spoken to numerous franchisees across brands, probably 12 franchisors. For me, it sometimes is confusing, but I think once you start digging into like the franchisee satisfaction, and some of the franchisors are in like pretty bad legal battles with their franchisees, and it's like all public record, and then it's like, okay, you can kind of distinguish some of the different players.
You absolutely can, and I think, this is my personal opinion, but I think, over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see a lot of consolidation.
Yeah.
We have to for it to work out. And I've worked on that in the past with my previous place. I'm doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions and going and getting the mom and pops to either rebrand or buy them out and brand it. So I think that's going to be part of the need and the direction over the next 3 to 5 years to really.
Yeah, and that will benefit because some of these franchisees are kind of stuck in systems where the average sales are like $500,000, where there's I don't know how many, maybe just 6 or 7 that their average sales are like past that million and like consistently hitting very solid financials.
Yeah, well, and you get you get people that want to come into the space because they're passionate about it, and then they look at a handful of different franchise organizations. They choose which one to go with, and then they just come in and think that it'll run itself, right? And so they end up only doing like $300,000 a year annual sales or $500,000, but they're not doing justice to what we're trying to deliver every day. And that's where we're at in a challenge space right now, right? All of us in the space, I don't care if it's Homewatch or one of our competitors, those of us that are in the top tier are trying to collaborate together to be like, how do we go out?
It seems pretty collaborative. And I know I listened to the podcast you were on with Disrupt, where you shared a lot of information, and it does seem like pretty open and transparent, and that people want to grow. And I've heard franchisees also talking across brands, even in the same territory.
Yeah, I think it's a critical component, right? I mean, I have monthly calls with some of my peers that are with the other brands, and we talk about we hold some things close to the vest, but we'll share other things that are going on. But we can't all cover. Not one of us can cover the white space solely. So competition's good, and you also want
especially when it's growing and you have the silver tsunami where it's not like frozen yogurt where demand's like been going down year after year. Like this demand's only getting bigger over the next. You would know better than me, but it looks like the next 15 years. There's a nice
run. Well, in the next 25 years. The senior population will outweigh the youth population. So that's saying is like the number of people 65 plus will outweigh the number of people 20 or less. So we think about that, that's huge.
And that the 80s market really needs your help. I mean, I can't imagine what percentage of people in their 80s still living at home, have a caregiver, but I would imagine it'd be quite high.
It is. So, and 90, it's something like 90%, give or take a couple percentage points of people that are 55 or older want to age in place or age at home, wherever
Yeah.
that is. So the
And
need for what
you live longer. That's the stats that
absolutely,
you.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just when you walk into somebody's home and they're in their 80s, their attitudes, their personalities are so much different than if you walk into an assisted living facility and walk into somebody who's 80 years old, because then they're just sitting in their, 10 by 10 space doing nothing. So,
I just
um,
finished watching that Blue Zone series on Netflix, but he's always interviewing people at their homes, whether it's
yeah,
in Costa Rica, California, Japan, and yeah, homes
yeah.
with family, eating well. But it does seem like a great way to age with dignity.
It absolutely is, right? I mean, it's your comfort zone. You've been there for however long you've been there, and you know everything, and we part of what we're doing with our innovation is really helping those types of people to modify their homes so they can stay home, right? Because there's things like people don't realize. I mean, I go into my dad's garage and he has like a little stoop from that he has to step in to go into the house, and I'm always like I never paid attention that you had that, but when the time comes, we'll put a ramp, so you don't have to like step up if you can't. But little things like that people don't realize that need to be modified in a home. And so we're working with some of our sister brands to be able to do things like that too, which is exciting to really prolong that need to ever move anywhere
And
else.
that's the positive thing where it's like such a small investment of like making a ramp can save literally gain years to your father's
Absolutely.
life, like to prevent like a fall and
Yeah.
save a lot of money in medical
Yeah.
costs should
Yeah.
there be a
$200 to
sickness.
put a ramp in is nothing.
Yeah, that's a nice insurance policy.
Absolutely.
Todd, can you think of any tips for people, prospective franchisees, those that are looking to get into the franchise space?
Yeah, and so in the home care space, I think I might have said a little while ago, but it's a passion driven place, right? So you have to make sure that you understand what the product is that's being delivered every day. I always say it's very critical. The second piece, anybody that's getting into franchising, whether it's home care or franchising in general, is to have them understand like you're given a box essentially from the franchisor, and it's what you choose to do with that box. Essentially, that box is the system, and if you don't follow the system, and you want to go rogue, you may not be successful. We have a proven path, and that's what franchising is all about, is a proven path from doing it over and over and repetitive on it. So it's really being mindful of that. Just follow the system. That's what it's all about. And also, like if you're looking at getting in, is do your validation, right? Make sure that you are calling other franchisees within that brand and asking the right questions, because there's a lot of things that we as a franchisor can't share during validation process, but you can get that information from franchisees. So it's critical to make sure you have the right questions, do your homework, do your research. And then I'll also understand, I always say this is you're not buying yourself a job. You're buying yourself a lifestyle. You have to remember that, because that lifestyle may be 14, 18-hour days some days, and other days it may allow you to go to the kids' piano rehearsal or whatever it might be, but you're buying that lifestyle and not a job.
Yeah, that's well said. And I think especially post pandemic, a lot of employees, especially white collar jobs, have had a lot more job flexibility. That a lot of people went into entrepreneurship wanting that flexibility, and employees more than ever, have it. So the grass isn't always greener on the other side going into entrepreneurship. You got to really want it and be passionate about it, be willing to put in the hours. And I think I speak for a lot of entrepreneurs that it's worth it, but come in with eyes wide open. And thanks, Todd, for making that super clear.
Yeah.
That this is a serious endeavor, and you have a lot of responsibility. You're gonna have payroll of 60 people's lives.
Right. Right. You are. You're suddenly every seat in the C-suite in your business. You're running all of this when you start your own business, get into franchising, and you also are affecting 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 employees, depending how fast you want to grow. You're affecting that, but then you're also very embedded in your community, and you're changing the lives of hundreds of thousands of people every day, by providing them a service to allow them to age in place with the dignity that they want.
Todd, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you or your colleagues at Homewatch if they're interested in exploring a franchise opportunity?
Yeah, I think, so the best thing is to go to homewatchcaregivers.com. And on that page, we have a franchise link, and they can click right on the franchise link, and it'll take you right to our franchising site, give you all sorts of different information, and then allow you to submit. And one of our franchise development representatives reaches out from there. Individual then moves into working with one of our franchise development managers who does all the franchise disclosure documents and puts you through validation, answers all the questions. And then the next step from there is we host a Meet the Team Day, which is a lot of fun, where candidates get to come into our support center and get to learn if they like me or not like me, along with my leadership team. But no, being funny there, but they do love us. They come in and we spend a day and a half with candidates. And then your journey begins, and it's exciting. Like we have a phenomenal franchise support team that helps do franchisees all the way through their journey with us. So if they're here for 7 years, 10 years, 20 years, if somebody that's just about to celebrate their 28th year with us as the brand. So it's exciting.
Wow. Well, Todd, thanks so much for joining, and we look forward to seeing people's comments on YouTube as well as feedback across the social media channels we'll go out on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Patrick. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Appreciate it, Todd.